Good morning. Got a big smile on my face, but the topic today is a bit troubling. Let me just get into it. It's called Compassion for Malevolently Programmed Humans. Yesterday I watched a troubling video called Human Resources. It revealed in more detail things that I already knew. It highlighted the programs of the psychopaths to manipulate and coerce human beings into an altered nature that is anything but human. Of course, the conditioning began with animals, but it did not stop there. Even babies were experimented on to see how far they could go in changing natural compassion into a fear-based controllable human machine designed to serve the system. Understanding that this is at least part of the reason for the apathy we see in the majority, those of us that are waking up need the wisdom to return to compassion rather than judgment. And yes, even on YouTube, I have the link for that video if you want to watch it. It's 2 hours long. And very troubling, as I said. Indeed, there has been an alternative program embedded into human culture. And in the 20th century, and now into the 21st century, through television and other mass media marketing campaigns, the programming has really altered the natural abilities, the natural compassion, the natural empathy that humans have from birth. It was interesting that babies had to be taught fear. Their natural curiosity was fearless. And I've noticed that even with my grandchildren, especially my grandson. I have one grandson and two granddaughters. My grandson was characterized early in toddlerhood as fearless. And yet, from my daughter, I get the story that he's learning fear through imitation of his sisters. Oh, anyway. Babies just naturally connect with their environment. And they're not in terror of it unless that terror is created. And this video showed how it is created. And I've long read and understood and known that the elite, especially the elite, breed or train out of their children empathy, compassion, and all of the nice and good human emotions and responses and conditions. And I go back and I look at the Bible that says we're born in sin and shapen in iniquity. BS. That's total BS. We are not. We are born children of God, every single one of us. And we have a natural tendency to be curious, to be compassionate, to be loving. Oh yeah, we have the sense of my. Toddlers go through that stage. But it's something that is, generally speaking, outgrown. But there is a malevolent programming that has taken place in human culture, more so in the 20th century than any time previous to that. Now that doesn't mean there weren't malevolent things happening previous to that. Obviously there are. Although, do we really know our history? Do we really know it? I mean, how much of our history is is somebody telling the truth, or how much of it is manipulated as part of the control mechanism to increase the level of fear in the human psyche, so that the human psyche becomes fear-based rather than love-based. These are questions that I'm asking myself as I meditate yesterday and continuing today, based on the things that video brought up for me. I have a tendency, like all of us have been trained to see the world as us versus them, because it's so easy to do. I've been trained that way. I've been conditioned by the matrix in the same way that everybody else has. And overcoming it is not easy. My natural tendency, I mean, as I just move through life, I notice, as I'm conscious more and more, how easy and quickly I go into judgment on people just by sight, just by things that I perceive from how they look, how they're conducting themselves, etc. And I go into judgment. We all need to become aware of how easily we are manipulated into doing that, so that it looks like it's our nature. But I'm telling you, folks, our nature is compassion, because we come from God. And God is compassionate. God is loving. Not the God of the Old Testament. Not the God of war that's depicted in some of our sacred, so-called sacred writings. Not that God, but the God that was manifested by Jesus and by Buddha, but by Jesus especially, who taught us that the real law is the law of love. The real law begins and ends with our ability to love one another. And in fact, we don't even know God if we're unable to love one another. We don't even know God at all. That's the teaching of the New Testament that I was raised with. Now, unfortunately, much of Christianity, most of it in fact, hasn't yet learned to love. But that's got to change, folks, because we have been pitted against each other so that Christians hate Muslims and vice versa. And nobody trusts people of different religions. That's got to stop, because these religions are artificial constructs, just like everything else in the Matrix. It's an artificial construct. Our money, our governments, everything in our system, the corporations, the banks, everything, folks, everything is an artificial construct in the Matrix, except us. And we have been turned into a mechanized human resource. Mechanized human resources. That's how the manipulators see us. We're not human. We have no value. We have no rights. We are just human resources made to serve the matrix, made to serve the system. So the task before us in the transformation of this is amazing. Now, I do believe that Spirit is pouring out grace upon grace upon grace. I mean, mercy is abundant. Absolutely a limitless supply of mercy and forgiveness, ready at the waiting for the asking, for the taking and receiving. Grace being offered to us. We need to overcome the programming, though. We need to reprogram ourselves from the fear-based culture that has been falsely accentuated. Not that fear never existed before, but the fear has been accentuated to the point where everything is based on fear and what's going to happen, and constant anxiety and constant stress. Nothing works the way it's supposed to. Everything is turned on its head, inside out and upside down. And we need to be aware that this is the world that we're living in. And we need to be compassionate to each other and recognize that the programming, whether we like it or not, has affected us all. But also, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, there's a change coming. There is a mutation of human species that is occurring. And it's a good mutation. It's a return to compassion. It's a return to the essential goodness that we were at the beginning with God, before all the karma and before all the negative experiences, the death and the misery and all the suffering that has taken place throughout human history, not just in the 20th century and in the 21st century. It's all being brought to a head now so that we can be more aware of it than we've ever been before, with all of the mass communication and everything, especially the internet. We're more aware, but we need to move into compassion. We need to move in to a place where we understand that sometimes people can't do any better. They're doing the best they can because they've been programmed, and they're following a program that's operating unconsciously. And my prayer is that somehow I will be able to touch hearts and to help other people become awake enough to touch hearts as well, so that our compassion overtakes our fear, overtakes the negativity of negating the good. And that's the worst kind of negativity, because it's been a programmed negativity, purposefully introduced to push down and to deny and to invalidate the natural tendencies to share and cooperate and to be interdependent in a culture that works together harmoniously in a homeostasis, in a condition where it all comes together for good. I have long seen that world, and yet I have long battled the world that I live in. The legal things. For some people it's health issues. For other people it's relationships. I'd love to have a relationship, but I'm not ready for one yet, I guess, because it's not here. If I was ready for it, it'd be here, wouldn't it? But so many people are going through so many struggles, a lot of it over money. Money is a big one, but it's an artificial construct. Ultimately, we're going to have a world that we don't need money anymore. I don't think we're very close to that yet. Well, when I say very close, we are in geological terms very, very close. But in human terms of the linear progression of time, it's probably going to take a generation, at least maybe 2 or 3, before we can totally and finally eliminate money from our system. That's my belief, and I could be wrong. I don't know how fast the changes can come that produce the evolutionary rise in consciousness that allows us to create that new world that I've seen for many, many, many years of my life. But it's coming. It's got to be coming. I can feel it sometimes really strongly. And then I watch movies like this one, and I understand. I begin to grasp how it got to be the way it is, and how much of it was on purpose and designed by people like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the banksters and the criminals that have risen to power in our world to show us our shadow, to show us what's inside of all of us, because it's in all of us. It's in me too. It's in me too. I don't see anything that isn't in me. I can't even perceive it. But how am I going to deal with it? I'm choosing to deal with it compassionately. I'm choosing to look at my brothers and sisters with compassion. Yeah, sometimes I think they don't get it, and I'd like to shake some people. Why can't you see? But we don't see until we're ready to see. We don't see until enough of our experience has brought us to the place where we finally get it, where we finally wake up. Anyway, I want to encourage you today and in the days ahead to remember that we have been programmed with a malevolent program, a fear-based program that has distorted our true nature of loving. We are love, folks. We are compassion. Be that love, be that compassion. I invite you to take that on and make it your mission in life, to love more and more, better and better every day. Thank you again for listening. I love you. Namaste. Namaste.